All right, now I've started the recording, the class. Anyway, welcome back. Um, how, have you started homework too? Some of you? Yeah, honest. Thanks for your honesty. Any questions? Any questions if you have started? Good. So the plan for today is kind of small. Plan for today, we'll do all of these. They are mostly on a conceptual level, right? So these are quite theoretical, but talking about the concepts and sort of the philosophy of predictive analytics, machine learning. Before that, I'd like to cover a little bit more about SAS, something I didn't have time to touch on. And by the way, in the tutorial for SAS EM and for part of the slides, SAS has tools for analyzing three-way relationships by using graphs. So you have a sort of a grouping variable that that segments the sample into several groups, and within each group you do the kind of graph analysis that we did, the bar chart, the interlaced bar chart, or histograms. So that provides not a super useful or informative, but sometimes it works, sometimes it provides some information if the relationship, the three-way relationship, is clear. But if it's not clear, then that is not very helpful. And as you know, visualizations work best for 2D, two dimensions. For 3 dimensions and beyond, we simply don't have that good tool for that. And that's why we need machine learning models and statistical models to tackle the multi-dimensional space of the problem. But sometimes it works for visualization. So I'll skip that. You can look at the video from previous semester, which by going to my YouTube channel, you can see all the videos. And that is for last semester. That's the week 5. That's the beginning part of week 5. I demonstrated. So I don't I think it doesn't make sense for me to do it again because it's the same. And over there, it's recorded. It's quite well demonstrated. So you can simply follow that and using those materials, and use it if you think it's useful. But I'm going to demo something else, which is also demonstrated last time, but it does have utility here, and maybe also helpful for part of your homework too, to answer the questions, so that you have sort of a wider spectrum of tools at your disposal. So that's what I'm going to do. I will demo the interactive binning node. There's a binning node there that you can put to use for some purposes. Okay, so we'll use the same data set as last time. We'll use a churn, right? And we'll look at some of the variables that are more difficult to use graphs to analyze relationships. So open the same project as the last time. Is that what I did? No, it's a copy. Okay. Let's see. Telco 1. It's not it. but this is not exactly what it did, but it's close. So this is what I want to do, but I'll do it again on a different note. So previously, just a recap, we did, and you know how to do the Stats Explorer. It's mostly showing you some tables and critical statistics, and you can examine the missing value, situation very quickly. Using Graph Explorer, you can create custom graphs, and those graphs are linked on underlying data, right? So if you click one bar, those data will show up highlighted in other bars as linked. Transform variables this node is very helpful to quickly browse the distributions without having to generate those individually. Multiplot is good if you want to make interlaid bar graphs or histograms of all the variables at once. Right? Then you can scroll through all the graphs. So all of these are useful in their own right, and this binning has its own purpose. So what purpose what problem can it solve more effectively? So let me demonstrate the problem here. One question you may have in exploratory analysis is simply trying to figure out or visually estimate the association or relationship between one input and the target, right? That's mostly what you're trying to do in understanding the data, in hoping to inform your model building, right? In the model building, a critical question is, which variable do I keep? Which variable do I focus on? Which variable should I not leave out? Definitely, because that is an informative variable. And exploratory data analysis serve part of that purpose. So given an interval variable, let's say, like day minutes, a number of minutes that's used by a customer, and try to figure out how is that variable related to churn. So think about how you would use graphs to inform you. From previous classes, the most you can do is generate a histogram, and then try to color code the churn event, right? So that would be already part of the graph that you can get from multiplot. So you can take a look, and that would be similar to if you were to make that graph in Graph Explorer, to make that the custom graph of day means, and then use the churn result to interlay, to interactively show those churned versus not churned of each bar. So here, one of these graphs is going to be about the date, or day cause would be similar. Let's choose day means, okay? So this graph shows a histogram of day means and color coded by churn event. And the red color is churn. It's a minority of the two situations, right? The percent of churn is minority, percent of non-churn is majority. But then the purpose here is to try to conclude visually whether or not this variable is at all correlated with churn, right? So you would look at the percentage, the relative percentage, right, which is an estimate for the likelihood. The relative percentage of the red bar of each of the entire bar, right? And see if the relative percentage changes according to somewhat clear pattern across the bars, right? But as I said, with the bars having different lengths, it's kind of hard to to visually, estimate, if not having an impression. You can have an impression, but that's only rough impressions. It's hard to say. It would be better. It would be better if the bars can be normalized the same length. Then you can see clearly the percentage differences. Unfortunately, a lot of the softwares don't do that. But you can also use pie chart, as I said. Pie chart can normalize the scale for all the categories. But think about how you would use the pie chart for all these different bars. It becomes, just a page a page of pies. That would be kind of domino all over the place, a domino pizza, So that might not work very well, and you have to organize the pies. So in this case, would it be helpful if we can have fewer bars here, right? How would you have fewer bars? If we have fewer bars, it might help us better see the trend. But how would you do fewer bars? One way is to, kind of try to change the property of the histogram. But if you change that bar ranges, they always have to be the same. If you increase the range of the bars, then for the first bar versus second bar, you have to have the same ranges. Those bar length has to be kept similar or the same exactly for histogram. But in this case, you might want to have more control in terms of the ranges that you create the bars, right? So you can put more cases for the bar that represents the lower ranges. Instead of, so if you combine these three bars and these three bars, you can do that. But again, these three bars don't make a very long bar to see clearly. You might want to combine 7 of these bars, but only keep 2 of these bars together to help you see a sort of a relative length, normalized length. Even though you have different number of cases in each bar, the percentage won't change. The percentage will indicate what you are looking for. That's not absolute values. So that's where the interactive binning can help you, right? So let's take a look at how to do that. Interactive binning would be maybe close to either explore or modify. Let's see. Interactive binning. It's modify. Yeah, here. So just drag that over to any point. Maybe, yeah, after the multiplot. Okay, there's something we need to change right away. For interval, let's see, properties, interval. Yes, you want to apply it to interval variables. Apply level rule. Because the day means is an interval variable. Let's see, method. Want to use buckets. So we want to want to save some workload and have SAS do some initial work for us. So we want SAS to, exactly like the previous graph, we want SAS to pre-bin into a large number of categories, like 20. Then we combine some of the 20 together. So it saves some time. Other than you have to specify specifically the first range, second range, and third range. And we want a large number here. So that's Good. Under, you got that? The first part? The three, we'll have to change the three, all of them, for interval variables. Underscore variable selection method. We want to select by name, but not some other statistic. So change that to none. Change the variable selection method to none. So that means you want to do manually. You don't want some automatic mechanism to help you. And that's it. I think should run. Yeah, I will use the day min as the example. So so what is it doing? It's changing the bins. You're customizing the bins and interactively based on some results that you can see. After binning, you can see how it changes, and then you can adjust. Sometimes you think binning these 5 would be good, but after binning, it's not what you're looking for. So maybe you add 1 more bar in it, so it becomes 6 bars instead of 5 bars. So you can interactively change and adapt. And after you're done, this node will create a new variable for you, which is the customized binned variable that has those bars as represented by different labels. So it become a, or sort of you would have created a nominal variable based on an interval variable. That makes sense? And then you can do something on the nominal variable. So let's see, I think under variables, and we need to specify based on what to bin. You need to change most of these to none, but only keep a few of them. So let's do this. You can select all of them and change to no, but then you need to make sure churn is yes. Oh, wait, no, I have to deselect. You have to deselect it. Click the name, and it's deselected. And make sure the churn is yes. And then we're gonna look for day mins. Where's day mins? Default. Right. So make sure you have everything else as no. A lot of clicking. I know. Well, let me show you. If you want to do a batch change, you click the first name and click the other name, which would have include everything. Before you click the tail, so that's a head. Before you click the tail, you hold Shift, and then click another one. So everything is selected. Then whatever you change, it will become the same for the rest of it, for everything. Right. So that helps. And then after you're good, you select one or the other, and it will clear the selection. Wait. Let's do update path. Good. All right. What is it? We need to go to interactive binning then. That's the second ellipse. the required table. It may have to be run again. Yeah. Something's not working?
Oh, I didn't have my day-minutes variable, but because I think I changed it to the previous one. So.
Or you can change it to a different variable.
Oh,
if you see a night minute, or it should work similar. Right, and try to click interactive binning. Great. Everybody's here if you're following? Yeah? Great. Now, we're working on this, and there's only one variable because we only retain this. And for churn is the target, so it's not going to show up here. So, let's see. So we don't need to change anything here. Groupings, okay. So based on 20 bins, this variable is pre-binned, right? So you have 20 categories created from small to large because this is interval variables. There's a natural sorting, right? The smaller values is a smaller bin is smaller ranges. Okay. Do you also have 21? Yeah. And 1 has no bar. It's kind of weird. Yeah. I don't know why.
No, the group 1 is the missing variables. If you check like the values.
Oh, there is there was missing for this variable.
Group 1 is missing, and then the rest are 28.
That makes sense. Great. Yeah. And yeah. So yeah, group 1 is it doesn't even have any value. Group 3 is kind of also missing because there's a gap between those values, and because we specified 20 bins, right? So there's a gap, and there's a like missing bin, a bin of no values in that range. Language. Okay, so here, all of these grayed out areas are information for you. So it tells you for these pre-binned categories, what are the cutoff values, and they are summarized in the value title, so the label. So these are the labels, and these are group number. So here you can do something. Let's see how we want to change groups, types, multiple groups, right click. Yeah. So if I see that from groups 2 to 7, there are few cases in those categories, and I want to analyze the percentage. I want to compare the percentage of churn in those ranges as versus the higher range of day means. So I would like to combine several of those bins together to make a longer bin. So the overarching binning strategy here is I want to have a small number of categories. So I only want 3 categories in the end. So I want to retain those center values in a big bin, and the left tails in one bin, and the right tails in the third bin, right? So I would want to include fewer pre-binned categories in the center because they are highly represented. If I include too many bins, it's gonna explode. The bar is gonna be too long, right? So by looking at these bars, I decide to use 4 of them in the center, or maybe even 3 or 4. They are not too bad. They are not too long, relatively, but they are still long. So I may include maybe these 4 bins as one bin after I rebin it, and maybe I want to also include this one because relatively, I want to make sure that the number of cases are similar after I rebin them. I want those on the left to add up similarly to those highlighted, and those highlighted to add up similarly to those on the right, right? So these 5 bars look okay to me. They look like 1/3 of the cases. Does that make sense? Right. So these are from 11 to 15. So I would select these 5. Yeah.
What if you did 7? Like
21,
because you have 21 and you want to make 3 bars, so like.
If you do 7 per bin.
Bins. No, 7 bins per. Yeah, per one.
Right. 7 bins per big bin,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of course. So that would mean that you cut the range equally into 3 ranges.
Is that what you want to do?
That's not what I want to do, because I want to, instead of having equal ranges of each bin, I want to have the equal number of cases going into each bin. Yeah. But that said, your method would provide a different result or a different perspective to look at results. So let's do this first, and we'll see what utility it provides. Select those 5 bins under this list. Even though you select here, it won't select automatically under these rows. From 11 to 15. So, yeah, I have 5 of them. Alarm. Yeah, flash flood. So, after it may seem like you don't have any ability to change any of these bins, because you can't change. There's no there's no drop down menu, but you do have some options here. So you can do this. You can right click. Yeah, you can merge bin. All right, let's do that. Now you have a very long bin. So this new 11, numbered 11 bin includes all 5 small bins previously. So now I want to include everything except the first one. Everything to the left of 11 to be in the same bin.
Would it change something if you added the missing?
It won't change. Well, it will change the number. Well, missing. Yeah, it's a good question. And there are still some questions remaining in terms of the missing. If there's missing, there should be a bar. But why is there not a bar, right? That might require some more, look into. But right now, let me skip that because I don't think it's affecting anything. So I'll combine this bin. Almost similar. Yeah, close enough. From fourth bin to the last, or even the last don't have anything. Right, it does have. Right. So let me merge this bin. Great. So the 3 bars are relatively similar. You could have done it differently, right? And would give you a somewhat different look, right, after the binning. But I think the important thing here is to catch the trend. It's not about the trivial sides, right? You understand the purpose and you do it relatively reasonably, and you'll get the same conclusion, if not the same exact result. On the right-hand side, you have the new bin numbers and the number of cases in each new bin. On the left, you notice some new things, right? It's color coded. It clearly shows, even though the color don't help too much, but the width of the bins are different. That shows you, what's the range that you included. The center bin has the smallest range, just because there are more observations there, right? So back to Alice's method, if you can imagine that you keep the ranges same, then you would see the three colors have the same length, but then very different height. That makes sense, right? Yeah. So my purpose is to keep them relatively similar. So that's one try to do. Okay, I think we're almost done here. We can save. Where's the save button? Apply. There should be a save.
Apply.
New group, save. Or maybe
Closing.
maybe it doesn't require saving. It's already saved.
Yeah, when you close it, it asks you if you want to save it or
Oh, it does?
not. Yeah.
Good.
Right now I have to
So
close
close.
it. Yeah.
So would you like save? Definitely. Okay, I think it requires running again. Yeah. Chart title, graphics, and you save. Yeah, let's just run it on the safe side. Right. Good. And to be safe, you can always check the results and make sure something is created. Day means, based on the input variable day means, a new variable grouped day mean is created. It has 4 values. The first label doesn't have any observations. The other 3 represents the 3 categories. All right, and then I will use another graph explorer. After the interactive bin 2. And first thing, always remember the first thing to change is the sample. Make sure you have everything. You go random and max. Yeah. So in this case, I think you do have to run before you can generate the graphs. Okay, we won't go into it because we don't want to look at the default graph that it generates. We want to make our own graphs. Well, let's see. Yeah, I do have to go in, and then so now I have a new variable, right? Grouped day means, and I want to do a graph. I already have a churn graph here. I want to do a bar chart for the new variable. So let's do it. I do a bar chart. Later we'll do a pie chart. For now we'll do a bar chart. You can do horizontal or vertical. It's the same. Let's see. We have a new variable, right? So let's see. I think it's a group category group, and churn. Let's see. Is it group or category? Category. Oh, we'll see. Churn as category. Title. Churn. Next. So the color is the Prebend day means. I would prefer the other way, or we can change it afterwards. For now, we can look at this graph. So the two bars represent two outcomes. The shorter bar are those who churned. The longer bar are those who didn't churn. And the colors of the bars are different bins. Two meaning they have smaller numbers, smaller values for day mean, right? So they make fewer calls or they talk less during the morning, during the day, and for the blue ones they talk a lot during the day. A question?
Yes. Was churn the role was a category?
I think I selected category, but you may want to do it the other way, the group. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do in a minute. But for now, so the three colors are kind of sorted in a way to make it easier to read. The higher values are toward the left. The lower values are toward the right. So they talk less on the right. They talk more on the left. So then you look at the relative percentages of the three colors in each of the bar and try to interpret the correlation. The first thing you want to read is, are the relative bars similar across the two outcomes? Definitely not similar, not uniform at least. If it were uniform, the three colors should be close to equal length in the second bar. But you do see that the red color is more represented in the non-churn group, right? So, the way you interpret this, so there is correlation here going on, right? And the way you interpret, given this bar chart, it's not optimal to make that kind of conclusion based on this bar chart. You want to flip the two rows. That would be easier, right? But here, you see more representative of the red bar and green bar in the non-churn category. That means these values of the day means contribute less to churn because they are more represented in the non-churn category. Does that make sense?
So less they talk during the day, less they're likely to churn.
Yes. Now, this chart does give you some difficulty to read. So let's switch the rows. So I'll do another bar chart, horizontal as well, but then use churn as group. So x-axis is the length, it's the frequency. Y-axis is the day mean. Now this would be relatively easier. The colors are now the outcomes, and the three bars represent the number, level of day means. The higher the value, the more the minutes, right? So, do you see uniform percentages? It's not. In category 4, it's almost 45-55, right? The percent of churn is the highest when they talk more, right? And the percent of churn becomes much smaller when they talk less. And these two categories are kind of similar in percentage-wise. Kind of similar, there are still differences. The second bar is much longer, but the proportion of red are still similar to the third bar. So you can see subtle differences there. But the major trend here is the difference between the first bar and the lower two bars, right? would that be something that you would conclude with high confidence if you were to look at the histogram? That would be, not, that would be more difficult to conclude the same finding over there. So this is the utility of binning. If there is a big trend, you will catch that by rebinning the complex, interval variables. You don't have to look at this many bars, right? You only need to catch the trend. But does it always work? If there's a curvilinear relationship, you may miss the trend, right? So, but it does provide you a tool for the question in the homework about, you need to look at every variable and determine whether it's related to churn by generating some graphs. If you deal with the interval, it might be hard. If you generate those many bars, it's hard to conclude. But with fewer bars, it's easier to conclude, right? So I hope this is helpful. So this would conclude the demo session for now. What is this?